These words this morning come from Alice Walker. To acknowledge our ancestors means we are aware that we did not make ourselves, that the line stretches all the way back, perhaps to God or to gods. We remember them because it is an easy thing to forget, that we are not the first to suffer, rebel, fight, love, and die. The grace with which we embrace life in spite of the pain, the sorrow, is always a measure of what has gone before. Welcome. I'm Kathleen Brannan. My pronouns are she and her. We are here to love one another and the world around us. Whatever your pronouns, your predilections, or your passions, we welcome you to come and grow in your own way in this welcoming community where we value justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. Last spring, the All Souls Board approved a practice of splitting our offering plate every Sunday. In keeping with our mission, purpose, calling, we are pleased to be able to partner with organizations whose values dovetail with our own. Our plate sharing recipient for October is the Unitarian Universalist Ministry for Earth. The UUMFE promotes race and class-informed environmental justice through partnership and collective action. Learn more at uumfe.org and sign up for their newsletter or connect with our climate justice group at the social justice table. The offering is the practice of the Free Church. It is supported by the voluntary generosity of all who join with us. Giving options are on the slide, and our ushers will be coming around with the baskets. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values. Thank you for your generosity. By AI definition, an ancestor is a person typically one more remote than a grandparent from whom one is descended. And as I have learned more about the history of this country, I changed my relationship status with my ancestors to, it's complicated. On one side of my family, my great-grandparents and generations before them have been in this country since the 1700s, mostly Scotch-Irish. According to history, those early Scotch-Irish immigrants were artisans and skilled tradespeople. These ancestors, after fighting on the side of the North in the Civil War, eventually found their way to the western plains of Kansas in the 1870s during the homestead period that followed. On the other side of my family, my great-grandparents were born in Italy in the late 1800s, came to this country as children in the 1890s during the Great Italian Immigration years, at the height of the anti-immigration sentiment in this country a century ago. According to history, many were unskilled, hoping to escape the chaos of their home country. My Italian ancestors settled in Chicago in an ethnic neighborhood. So you have rural Southwest Kansas and urban large city Chicago. These two distinct histories crossed one another in 1941 at a citywide Veterans Day dance held in the ballrooms of Chicago. A young service member raised in rural Kansas and a young office worker raised in the city met and later married. Now I am the oldest generation, along with my siblings and cousins, and I wonder, what was the blessing that my ancestors with such different histories bestowed upon me? One, connection to family or roots, no matter what. Two, a life of service. Use your skills not just for you to profit from, but in service for others. Kansan farmers and entrepreneurs, builders of churches and businesses, elected officials, and military service. It is all in my rural family roots. 3, be vivacious and hospitable, even when you have little money. Working behind the counter at Woolworth's, living on minimum Social Security, my grandma Myrtle and her sister, my Aunt Marie, were always ready to have fun. I loved their visits. And 4, through it all, both sides of my ancestors blessed me with resilience, seeking what is good in life. And then I turn and see the generations following. My children, my nephews and nieces, and the grandnephews and nieces, and maybe down the road more. I see the thread of my ancestors' blessings in those that follow my generation. As Alice Walker noted, to acknowledge our ancestors means that we are aware that we did not make ourselves. The grace with which we embrace life in spite of the pain, the sorrow, is always a measure of what has gone before. My father in his later years had a ritual that he did every evening before he fell asleep. He lived to be 103. He would go through and name and bless everyone in the family, starting with his wife, who had died years before, then all 4 of us kids and the spouses, then all 11 grandchildren and their spouses, and then all 10 great-grandchildren. He blessed our generations. And so I bless the generations to follow with both the roots of our ancestors and the wings to follow their own dream.
So mid-October, clouds come colder and the sunshine is savored now. Savor the sunshine. The leaves flash, yellows pop from the green. Already some branches are bare and it's dark when it was light just a few days ago. Before our very eyes, we witness our idea of time. But the turning of the great wheel can be more than witnessed. When you give yourself just a moment to notice, the turning of the great wheel can be felt. So when I take a beat to behold the changing seasons, I feel it. I feel it actually right here. I feel autumn somewhere between my heart and my gut. Do you feel that too? And you feel the quickening? It's an exciting sensation, which is ironic maybe, because fall is thought of as a turning towards winter, into the dark, and in some ways a turning into dormancy and death. And so maybe it's an odd thing to find that exciting, but part of that death from fields and gardens comes to me as harvest. So maybe it makes sense. Of course, my people don't exactly harvest anymore. Not like that. We go to the grocery. But the feeling remains. So this feeling of excitement as work harvests life from death is an ancient genetics still alive within me. It's an instinct instilled over countless and uncountable generations, scrolling back to when you and I were den mates and kin. Now, from that vantage, it is sometimes easier to see how the land and creatures and plants of the land shaped us as much as culture and caregivers did. And so we see from the location of the ancients that our lineage is more than human, and that our ancestors includes animals and vegetation and soil and water. Our ancestors are place as well as people, or even place as persona. And from here we can see our kinship with all creation. And so this too is kind of a harvest of life from death. The feeling that fall generates is a portal into a perspective outside of time. No wonder they say that the veil thins at this time of year. We feel it. The portal is an invitation. And I feel that here, where the ancients live, and they whisper in sensations as much as words, and they live here as I and you and we all will one day live here in the grandkids of our grandkids' grandkids. We hope. We hope. And that hope, that our wisdom and instinct and voice will live in the bodies of those who will come long after us, is not so much a hope for ourselves, right? That we will somehow live on in others. We're not that selfish. Our hope is for them. Our hope is that they are there and safe and blessed. And that hope is expressed in how we live. Our hope for the future generations is expressed in how we live, how we love. Your life is the hope of future life. May your life be the hope of future life. It's a good blessing and a good prayer. May your life be the hope of future life. And if it is, if we are heard as ancestors, it will be because we in turn heard our ancestors. We sensed what they sensed. We heard what they heard. And where there was wisdom in the sensing, we listened, and where there was pain, we healed. And sometimes, of course, those two things are the same thing. May your life be the hope of future life. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. For hope and forgiveness are related. For in what era have we not trespassed? Forgiveness, then, is part of the bargain, it seems. You see, forgiveness is the practice or a practice of giving grace. And perhaps if we practice giving grace enough, we'll begin to recognize it more and more as it is all around us. Grace. And so the hope of future life is granted by grace for grace, a cycle, a turning, a portal. And with that, we too turn with the planet and time itself into the dark. We follow the thought of a blackbird into the underworld, the other world, into the into, where the dark calls up our imagination so that we might see what's inside, so that we might sense the presence of life, the lives, all the kith and kin it took to bring us into breath. May your life be the hope of future life, just as theirs was. We carry their hope as well, collapsing past into the present, as the present is ever but a memory, a story. We carry their hope as if it were a totem for us to tend, as Vasilisa tended the doll inherited from and made magic by her ancestor mother. So if you were here last week, you heard tell of Vasilisa's doll, enchanted with the wisdom of her ancestors and projecting protection, encouragement, and wisdom by that blessing. And with the doll's guidance and guardianship, she was able to recover the fire that her family had neglected and let go out, the light that they let die, the vision that they lost, which had enabled their survival. It feels all too familiar. In that doll, she carried the hope of her ancestors, just as we do right here. And you can feel it in autumn. You can sense their hope more readily in this season of death and harvest. And the truth is, of course, that we do carry more than their hope. We carry their pain as well. Not that they meant for us to, but that's just how it works. We carry their wisdom and their fear, their joy and their outbursts, their insults and bruises. We carry their hope and their traumas too. We carry them with us. They live in us. And that we carry their trauma makes it hard for us to hear them sometimes. It's hard to hear the wisdom of Baba Yaga because she is so ferocious. Just so, trauma clouds our lenses. It corrupts an enchanted world rife with meaning into a projection of our own terror. It is hard to sense wisdom through the tourniquet of trauma. It is hard to hear the wisdom of our ancestors through their trauma that we carry. And it is hard for them to speak as well. When you're in pain, it is difficult to be articulate. It is challenging to pass ancestral wisdom through trauma without needing trauma to repeat for the lesson to be made plain. It's challenging to pass wisdom through trauma without needing pain to repeat for the lesson to be made plain. This is much of our lives, much of our world. But in the world of the immaterial, ask any therapist or shaman or magical doll or blackbird, in the world of the immaterial, it is often true that healing and listening are the same thing. So we listen to our ancestors. We make presence with our ancestors. And we can practice it. Next week, we will make a ceremony of it. And we can listen and heal. We can bear witness to their agony and the agony they caused. We listen, we sense, like we sense the fall. For me, right here. This ancient, fluttering anticipation. It's an invitation, a passage into the woods on dark wings, into the underworld of my ancestry, my subconscious, the predictive realm of narrative, the hearth of my ancestors. There, here, we sit with them, and maybe they, like us, will simply be satisfied, relieved by the presence of their descendant. Maybe they will feel gratitude for your presence and grace for grace offer you a blessing or ask forgiveness or reveal their wound. And we can stay with them as both mother and child. Sense their presence in our body, notice their pain, notice their hope, notice their relief. We can know that witness is integration, and integration is healing. Their fear need not be our fear. For fear loses footing when seen, when noticed as a message rather than a state of being. Now, we may find that we have some work to do to make amends for mistakes that we didn't even make, but we carry in us. We may need to see amends made to us. But whatever the path, it is more easily discerned when it is not being strained through trauma. When the emotional distress is stilled, when our ancestral soul is healed, and when we are no longer beholden to a malady inherited spiritually, evident biologically and psychologically, and performed relationally and or politically. Being sensed and sensing all by itself is a healing of a kind, and you know this. Knowing you are heard puts your heart at ease. Hearing our ancestors will do the same. And when we set them at ease in us, we set ourselves at ease. And then we will hear the wisdom without it being strained through trauma. And we will hear it as it is, a blessing that cuts through all the noise, all the mistakes and transgressions, all the history, and blazes a line from them to us made of nothing but love and good counsel. And the understanding that they, our ancients, our ancestors, encompass all persons, the plants, animals, geography, and humans that brought us into awareness. In this healing, this listening, we may sense the immensity of our kindred and find there the depths of love heretofore unfelt, all that grace. May you give grace for grace. For the world will not cease in its turning, and time will not drop its illusion, even when revealed. For the story never ends. We are graced, however, with windows into the into. We are graced with windows into the night. Pitch its blackbird wings, where the dark calls up our imagination, so that we might see what's inside. So we might sense our ancestors and heal them, and sense our progeny, that they may heal us through our living hope. I feel it right here. This harvest of life from death. It's exciting. And maybe it's exciting because somewhere back there, maybe not too long ago, or maybe many, 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 many generations ago, someone is holding the line, hoping for us. Maybe many someones along the way, holding the line, offering counsel and someone to lean on, knowing that we're here, hoping that we're here, so that if we listen or sense, we will at some point, and always in the end, hear or know a blessing. May we sense our blessing. May you sense your blessing. May your life be the hope of future life. May you sense the immensity of your kinship. May you hear and heal the wounds of history. May you know the work that you've been given. May you give grace for grace. May you know relief. And may you sense your blessing. As we leave this time, this sacred time that we have created together, with our mutual intention, with our gratitude, with our generosity, let us go knowing that the ancestors go with us, that they have need of us, just as we have need of our progeny. May your life be the hope of the future. Let us go singing. Let us go in peace.
Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry